Level Up and Live podcast, where we explore the pathways to personal growth and well-being. I'm your host, Sean Myers, joined by my co-host, Ewan Heinemeyer. And today, we have a special guest joining us, Kendall Wood. Kendall is not just your ordinary yoga therapist and teacher. She's a ERYT 500 with a passion for helping first responders and high-stress job holders find balance in their lives. Based in sunny San Diego, Kendall brings the wisdom of ancient yoga therapy techniques into the modern world of psychology. Join us as we dive deep into the holistic approach of yoga therapy and discover how it can transform your life.
Kendall Wood, thanks so much for being on the show today. We were just going to prep him beforehand, and I'm very excited. I'm always excited to talk to guests, but this one, we've never done this before. So I'm talking to everybody listening. Hold on to the end because we're going to do a little, not experiment, but a little trial of some breathing and maybe some sitting down stretching exercises. And the reason I'm saying that is Kendall is an expert yoga instructor. She does it virtually. So most people think of going to a class. They got to get all the gear on and be in front of people. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. She does it virtual. And so she can do one-on-ones, which I think is just awesome. And for the business owners, entrepreneurs listening today, we're going to dig into the virtual aspect and how she's pulled that off. It's opened up a whole bunch of doors for her to do that. So think about how that could relate to your business. I think being in California it's maybe in my mind, yoga is like a normal. More people do that in California than maybe other places, but I think so. Having it virtual is just a beautiful thing. If you go to kendaln.com, that's our website. I got super cool Instagram, YouTube channel, all the good things. We're going to dig into all those things today. So, Kendall, if you give us a little bit about yourself, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you guys this morning. And yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm also trained as a yoga therapist, which blends in a bit more of like a therapeutic element to the practice. So when I'm working with clients one-on-one, it's not just like a generic yoga class that you would see at a gym. It's really custom tailored to each person's needs. And I do a lot of work with first responders and military groups and people who have high stress jobs or struggle with anxiety or sleep issues, and teach ways to cope with that are rooted in tools that yoga teaches. So breathing practices, meditation practices, mindfulness, and physical movement to help release tension in the body, just to help with overall mind-body well-being. So that's a little bit about what I do.
You're speaking our language, because anytime I hear yoga, meditation, stretching, stuff like that, I'm like, oh, it's a necessity. We need to do it. I just don't spend the time to do it. And it's like I told you before we shot the podcast today, is I tried yoga one time, and it was my last time to try it because I had tried the advanced version, and this lady was bending over, so when I think of yoga, I think about our listeners and audience listening to this, like, oh man, this is terrifying, right? Like, and so for me, I didn't really understand it and like what all went into it, right? Because I know stretching as an athlete myself, but we never really got into yoga. So I'm curious with you, 2-part question. 1, how did you get into yoga? And 2, why yoga?
Yeah. So I got into yoga after I had graduated from college. Well, interestingly enough, if you zoom back, when I was like 17, I was just graduated high school. I told my parents I wanted to move to San Diego and become a yoga teacher. And they told me I had to go to college. But then I turned out 6 or 8 years later, I ended up coming to San Diego and becoming a yoga teacher anyways. So I had done yoga a little bit in my teenage years, but it was after college that I was kind of struggling with burnout. I was working like 3 jobs. I had gone to school for communications and marketing, and I had like an office job during the day. Then I would bartend at night, or sometimes cocktail waitress until 2 or 3 in the morning, and just was like on this grind of like, I'm on my own financially for the first time. I need to make money. So I'm just going to like work as much as possible. And when you're in your early 20s, you can like kind of do that for a little while. I had the energy for it, but I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating well. I didn't have time to like do things for myself. I was just like on the grind, or I was out drinking with friends, or the typical early 20s unhealthy coping mechanisms. And around that time, a friend invited me to go to a yoga class. And after leaving that class, I just was like, oh my gosh, there's things I could be doing for myself. Like I could feel better. And that led me on this journey of like making some healthier choices and realizing that not only was I feeling more physically fit, I was not really having panic attacks. My anxiety reduced. I started sleeping better. And so I wanted to teach yoga through that therapeutic context of like yoga can help you sleep, it can help with stress. And that kind of led me down the road of teaching to first responders and other high stress populations. So
What
it's,
led it to the first responders? Because that's quite the niche, right? Like in business, you're having to focus on a specific subset. If you try and get everybody, you probably don't get anybody, right? So you really kind of
yes.
honed in on that. What led to that? Because that's quite the, I don't want to say challenge is the wrong word, but that's it can maybe more intense, right? You're dealing with people who have had trauma, and that stress level is, it's death threat level in their minds and whatnot. So how did you land on that, and what kept you going with that?
Yeah. So I landed on that after teaching like when I very first, oh, and here my cat's joining us.
Come on in.
When I, when I first started teaching, I was working at gyms and yoga studios like most brand new yoga teachers do. And I started realizing that a lot of people were coming to class asking about like, how many calories am I burning? Or when will I be able to do the splits? And like these kind of very physical and what I think is kind of superficial parts of the practice. Like yoga is not about how many calories you're burning. It's not about like, I don't know. It's just not about that. It's about getting your mind right and focusing and grounding yourself and like being kind to your body, not overly pushing yourself. And some westernized yoga is very focused on that more like fitness aspect. And like, I just got burnt out of that. And I was like, what populations would want to do yoga for the stress and mental health benefits? And that was when I started teaching yoga to veterans. And I was like, you know what? These people are not as interested in being able to do a handstand. They're here, like, really for the more grounding, meditative aspects of this practice. And that's what I want to teach. So I started teaching to veterans, and I worked with a group called Connected Warriors for about a year. And then I met my now husband, who's a firefighter. And I was like, if this is working for these veterans, why isn't the younger generation doing this? Like the guys I was working with were in their like 70s. My boyfriend at the time was in his mid 20s. And I was just like, we should be doing this across the board, teaching people how to take care of themselves so that they don't reach the point where they're super burnt out. And a lot of the research is showing that even people who have a consistent mindfulness practice are less likely to develop symptoms of post traumatic stress. And they have better tools for coping with flashbacks and difficult emotions because they've kind of learned how to sit with their thoughts and emotions on their yoga mat. So, a lot of cool research there that led me to working with that population, and they were surprisingly receptive. I was nervous to teach to a population that's like 90% really macho men, and what they would think about yoga, but everyone's been super receptive. And I think they all need that like little thing to like take the edge off and relax and reset, you know?
So you've built a business. You've been doing this for 8 years now, and you obviously, like, I'm big on it. The statistics don't lie, right? Most businesses fail that first year, then the first 3 years, and 5 years. You've been in business 8 years. I'm curious with you. What do you feel like has separated the difference between you being in business 8 years and other yoga instructors that are like, I'm throwing in the towel?
Mm. I think the main difference is that I'm genuinely passionate about what I do
Mm.
in terms of why I haven't thrown in the towel, because there have been times when it's been really hard. There have been times where I'm not making as much money as I would like to make, but I love what I do. And every time I show up for it, it like fuels me. And I know that I'm on the right path. So I will always be teaching in some regard for the rest of my life, I'm sure. That really keeps me going. I think the passion behind it and that it comes from an authentic place. It's not just that I want to make money or have a business. It's like I genuinely love what I do. And I always am a big advocate for that with other people. Like, follow what you love, and it will work out with time, rather than trying to force something that you actually don't care about very much. That will always feel like work, and that will lead towards burnout. But if you're really finding your passion, it's, to me, it's more likely that it'll work out.
And then, so you
Yeah.
said you've done it virtually too. Have you? Is that a newer development of you, or did you do that kind of right off the bat, or how did you do that? Because I think that's really interesting. It's just opened up a whole new dynamic of what you could offer.
Yeah, yeah, it really changed everything. It was um, COVID was the catalyst for actually really good change in a weird way. But previously, and most full-time yoga teachers teach at like 3 to 5 different yoga studios and spend the day driving around teaching like 4 to 6 classes a day, commuting a ton. And I did that at first, teaching like 25 classes a week and on the grind. And that is like such a funny thing, especially in the yoga business, because we're telling everyone else to slow down and breathe and like take care of themselves. And then we're teaching 6 classes in a day at 3 different yoga studios and eating a protein bar on the go for lunch. And like, we don't have time to take care of ourselves. So that wasn't lining up with my values, doing it that way. And when COVID happened, all the gyms and yoga studios closed. And so at that point, I lost all my work. And it was actually ended up being like the best thing that ever happened, because it forced me to think creatively and realize that for a long time I had wanted to do things differently, but I wasn't sure how to. And then when that happened, it was like, oh, let's try virtual sessions. And it turned out that people were very receptive to that. Kind of what you alluded to earlier, that for some people, going to a public yoga class can be a little bit uncomfortable, or it comes with a little bit of vulnerability of like, oh my gosh, I'm not very flexible, or I'm new to this. And everyone else in the room is going to be so advanced. And there's like a sense of comparison or embarrassment that some people feel when they first step into the yoga studio. So being able to do that in the comfort of your home removes that element. And I've found that people are a little more receptive to being calm and comfortable and grounded when they're in their own home, where they can grab a glass of water, grab a pillow off their couch to put under their head if they need to. They can be in their own space. Um, and there's no commute time anymore.
Right.
So now for the client and for me, there's not 30 minutes on either end of driving across town, where your hour yoga class now takes 2 hours or more out of your day. And it's very efficient to just practice for your hour at home and then go on to the rest of your day. So, yeah.
You just made me think of something. I don't know if you remember this. It was 2012. We were going on a cruise to the Bahamas. This is 2012, so this is 12 years ago. And we were doing, I can't, it was like Fitness RX or something out of the Gold's Gym. And we were working it hard. We were in probably some of the best shape of our life at that point. And at the Gold's Gym, there was a yoga class. And we're like, let's go do that. No big deal. We went in and we couldn't walk for 3 days later. Like it was, I mean, we were fit and we could
Yeah.
not handle what was going on in there. And we are like, we're never going back to that. And it was just too advanced, you know. So I'm thinking when you're doing it virtual, it's one-on-one, and you can get honed in exactly where they are and take them where they need to be. I did hot yoga for a while too, and that was super hot, and I was like, I can't. That's not sustainable for me, you know. And there's people everyone's sweating and all, which is great for some people. They probably love that, but thinking the one-on-one virtual is going to be has so many benefits to really getting the most out of it, and it's very specified to people that do that. How do you market yourself to that, or during COVID, how did you get yourself to market that? And was it social media, or was it relationships that you had?
Yeah, I would say it was primarily through social media and through Instagram, and connecting with clients that already had followed me, people who are regulars at the gym and yoga studio, and then kind of branching out from there and building an email list over time. Um, and then the other thing that happened around that same time was I partnered with a nonprofit organization called the Iverson Foundation for Active Awareness, and they helped provide yoga therapy sessions to first responders. So through partnering with them, that also helped expand my reach a little bit within the first responder community.
Awesome. I just recently did a 6 common mistakes that new business owners make. So I want you to take yourself back the first 0 to 12 months. Do that right
Hmm.
now. Take yourself back. What would be, and I know the 6 is about to drop on YouTube and just kind of clean some things up, thumbnails and all that fun stuff, right? But what would you say one mistake that you had made and what you had what you would have done differently knowing what you know now that first 0 to 12
Hmm.
months?
I think if any mistake, I would say just not being consistent. I think consistency is the most important thing. And there have been times in my business, I feel like that's always the place where I have room for growth is like really staying consistent with reaching out to people, staying consistent with social media, um, and yeah, just staying consistent because when that starts to fall off, it's hard to build that momentum back up again.
Mhm.
That's
What
good.
do you, in knowing that, how do you stay on top of that? Like, what do you do to make sure you're staying consistent? Because what you just said,
Yeah.
there's probably 90% of people's issue. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to be consistent. Like, we're human beings. We're not good at doing monotonous, the same thing over and over again. But but that is the key to success and getting your message right. Cause it's all about what you have to offer people. And you love it and you know the benefits of it. And this is almost all businesses. Yeah. How have you found yourself to be able to stay more consistent?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's still sometimes a challenge, but organization, like having a good planner, putting things on the schedule. Like for me, if I put things on my Google Calendar, I will do them. If I just put them in a list somewhere on my phone or a paper, handwritten, old school list, that might not get done. But if I just carve out the time and put it on my calendar, then I will do it. So for me, that's what works. Just like looking at my week or my month ahead and planning out the key elements of what I want to accomplish and just making time.
So for somebody that's contemplating yoga, so I'm thinking about it this entire time. You've
Me too.
inspired me. You've showed up. I'm like, I can't wait to. I'm gonna try yoga today, right after this podcast session, because we've exerted so much energy. And then when I think of yoga, I'm like, okay, you've kind of brought a new profound sense to it, where like, hey, it's not all just about doing crazy different, stretches and stuff like that. It's more of like a relaxation, a meditation. And when I think about you and your clients, what have you found in the last 8 years with the clients that use your services virtually? How has it made a difference in their lives by coming to these yoga sessions? Is there like one story that you have or one success
Mm.
story that you have with an individual that's like, oh my gosh, Kendall Wood is the best yoga instructor in California. You need to reach out to her. Here's why. It's made the biggest impact on my life. I'm dying to hear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of things. I would say, like, one story that stands out to me is there was somebody who had been having foot pain for years. He was somebody who was a fire captain and had been hard on his body for years, but he was having really severe foot pain for years. And within like 2 weeks of working with me, it went away. It was just like these little creative things that he hadn't quite thought about or that he hadn't been consistent with in his self-care practice that made his foot pain almost entirely disappear. The other one is I do a lot of work. So from the yoga therapy perspective, it's a little bit more like blending in almost like elements of talk therapy where I sit and talk with people about their day and their week, what's going on. Almost like talk therapy meets coaching in a way. And then we do yoga or breathing practices based on whatever they're going through. And I have a lot of really great success with people who struggle with sleep. Where there was this happened in a group session. I was teaching to Berkeley Police Department up in San Francisco area. And this guy came in and said he'd been struggling with insomnia for like years and years, could never fall asleep. And within like 5 minutes of this guided relaxation practice that I taught, he was like the first one snoring. And I hope that he's continued it because it has to be something you practice consistently for it to help with something like insomnia. But I'm really good at helping people sleep, and I'm really good at helping with that kind of like turning on the parasympathetic nervous system and helping with stress. So anyone that's gone through whether it's like a trauma or I'm thinking of one other client that had a really intense car accident. And we worked through some of their stress and kind of the lingering feelings of anxiety that would happen every time they got in the car, and paired that with some breath work and mindfulness practices that help them start to feel more comfortable driving again. It's like these types of things we don't really think about yoga helping with, but the mindset and the mindfulness element of yoga can be so helpful if you're overcoming a stressful or traumatic circumstance too. So yeah, I guess everything from healing physical pain to helping with mental awareness and mindset and under stress. I do a little bit of all of that.
You know the book? It's called "The Body Knows the Score."
Oh yeah, body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score. Yeah, you could, I think a lot of people might have thought, oh, that's woo kind of stuff, but it really, it is memory, right? The subconscious and the body. If you think about certain situations, we tense up, and then when you're present, you're like, I didn't even realize I was doing this, and you can do that relaxation, right? I think there's a certain underlying inflammation of tension that are in people's bodies, and it's all different levels. And when I hear you say that, would you say that is the brain connecting with the body, and then you're reconditioning it to be a more mellow state consistently? Is that what the production is of doing all that consistently?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's very close to that. The only thing I would shift is that there's sometimes a feeling that we need to be calm all the time. And I like to let people know that I'm not fully on board with that. I think that there are some times where it's okay. Like we have to have that sympathetic nervous system response too. We have to be able to jump into action. It's our body's protection mechanism. We also have to allow ourselves to feel sad sometimes or feel angry sometimes and find healthy ways to process those emotions too. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's the body and the mind are interconnected. I definitely see it as not like two systems, but like as one very connected and integrated system. That if something's going on in our head, like most people can probably understand, even if they haven't done yoga, like when you're stressed, you probably feel more physical tension in your body, right? Like people will be like, oh, I've been so stressed this week. I have a headache, or my neck hurts, or my back hurts. And there is definitely a correlation to how we build up emotional or psychological stress and how it manifests in a physical way. And then when we release physical tension, it has this really magical way of helping release emotional or psychological tension at the same time. So
I just
One of
felt
the
more
things
relaxed listening to you say that. I don't know.
I know. Well, it's put me asleep over here. Like, man, are you
You've
doing
got
something
that
to me right
hypnotic
now?
voice. It's really good. I love it.
She does have that voice, doesn't she, Ewan? But so when I think of business owners, salespeople, entrepreneurs, right? It's like stress, anxiety. It's like nonstop. Customer emails, marketing, sales, growing a business. You know yourself, and so you just got this like an alignment where you're growing a business and you've got yoga, so you've got the resources, the tools to really help you in those stressful environments. And so with somebody, when I think about somebody listening to this, even myself included, it's like, I'm busy. I don't have time for yoga, Kendall. And we preach this all the time. Hey, look, like go slow to go fast. And what that means is doing the things like recovery, sleep, nutrition. One of the things I've realized about yoga instructors is they seem to be very fit, right? And so my question is why? Why are they fit? And how is that tied to nutrition? Because one of the things that I think about with the mind, like what we just talked about, the mind and the gut, right? They're tied together, is it has a lot to do with nutrition. And so I don't know if you preach that, teach that, or talk about it with your clients, but how important is aligning with your nutrition, what you put in your body to yoga?
I think that's very important. When we talk about the body and the mind as one interconnected system, we have to take into consideration what we're putting into our bodies. So, if somebody is struggling with sleep, but then they tell me that they're drinking 8 cups of coffee a day and eating a bunch of sugar right before bed, doing breathing practices is not going to necessarily be what helps them sleep better. We have to also consider what they're putting in their bodies. So, I think of yoga as yoga is more than just physical yoga poses.
Yes.
It's also more of a lifestyle shift to living in a more mindful way with more awareness of how what you're doing is affecting your psyche and is affecting your physical body.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think nutrition and good proper hydration and making sure that you're getting enough vitamins and nutrients, like that is essential to your brain functioning properly and to your body functioning properly. So it's not like fitness in terms of like you don't have to have a six pack and like big biceps or something, but like you have to be healthy and feeding your body nourishing foods in order for your body to perform optimally.
Mm. And that ties like right into the sleep side of it. Sean and I have the Aura rings. I don't know if you track any kind of numbers. Like,
Yeah.
I have a Garmin and the Aura ring, and Sean has like four different things. So at one point, yeah, he's got multiple. So we track. We train. We're competing in certain things, um, and what we found is if you eat right before bed, like an hour or so, HRV, heart rate variability, which is just indication of recovery and the overall readiness, fitness level, eating close to bedtime will kill you off, right? It's just going to tank your HRV. Not great. Alcohol, even one drink will totally mess that up. And people, it's so easy though to just have that little cookie or a little bit of candy or have a glass of wine right before bed. Doing yoga and and you said it being structured, having your day planned out, it's all encompassing. It seems overwhelming. How do you is it just baby steps to get people up to that level, or how would you walk someone through from they're not doing great today to this, not a finished product, but they're in a great place where they've changed all these habits? Have you seen a lot of your clients by doing yoga slowing down that they're able to take those healthy steps? Have you seen like you know,
Yeah.
the total transition?
Yeah, and I think what you said about baby steps is exactly the answer there. It's like we have to be patient with ourselves in that process. That if you are somebody who doesn't do any of, like, let's say you have like just a super unhealthy lifestyle, everything that you do is just on the unhealthy end of the spectrum, we're not going to switch that around 180 overnight. And that's okay. But maybe it starts with just drinking enough water every day, and then maybe you start looking at incorporating in more whole foods. And I like to try to talk to my clients and people about what can they add in rather than what are they taking out. So it's
Mm.
not about restricting or cutting things out that you enjoy. It's more about like what can we add to make things better. So maybe just adding more fruits and vegetables. It doesn't mean that right away you're quitting all sugar, or adding in more hydration. It doesn't mean you're quitting alcohol cold turkey tomorrow. We can like start to slowly make those changes. And then over time, I find that like people start to just feel better. And then it just becomes what you want to do. Like I'll give a thing from my life. Like I grew up, especially in my early 20s, I was drinking a lot. Not, it wasn't the healthiest. And over the last year, I actually quit drinking a year and a half ago.
Awesome.
And it started with, I just wanted to take a couple months off drinking. Like, I feel like a lot of us do, like once a year or something, take a sober month or whatever, take a little couple weeks off alcohol. And this time it was going to be, I decided to do 3 months off of alcohol. And I never had the intention to fully quit. It's like, I'm just going to take 3 months off. After that 3 months, I didn't want to drink anymore. It's like, it's not appealing anymore, you know? So giving yourself patience and time and trusting that those changes take a while, but that once you start to feel the benefits of it, it's hard to want to go back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the things that I love is tweaking my days and my routines. I have what's called an evening routine, morning routine, stuff like this, just to help me optimize the way I feel, right? And with yoga, what have you found that works best for your clients and maybe even yourself? Where do you implement that during the day, right? So I think of somebody that has a busy lifestyle, and they were, and I don't, and maybe you can touch on how long, what's the optimal length, right? 5 minutes, 10, 15, 20, whatever they can get in their day. So what would be the best time of day to do a yoga practice? Is it in the evening? Is it before bed? Is it in the morning? And then how long for somebody that's starting that would be interested in getting into it?
Yeah. So in terms of how long, I think starting at like, let's say 10 minutes a day
2 minutes.
is going to be great for people. Like little baby steps. I'd rather have somebody do yoga 10 minutes a day than only do it an hour a week. Something that can make it a consistent daily practice will help it create those lifestyle shifts better than if it's something you just do a couple times a month. And then in terms of times of day, from a yoga therapy perspective, it depends on the person. There are maybe somebody who struggles with sleep should be doing yoga before bed,
Yoga before bed.
or somebody who struggles with feeling lethargic and like they can never get their day going and they're always super groggy. For them, maybe actually doing a more vigorous practice and moving more first thing in the morning would be a good way to kind of get their circulation going, get their brain back online, and get them ready for the day. So, depending on the person and what they're trying to accomplish through their yoga or mindfulness practice, the time of day might adjust. But overall, the best time of day is the time that you'll actually do it. So if that's during your lunch break, that's fine too. Like I don't care when you do it. It's just like what time is going to work for your schedule, and then what time length is something that you can actually commit to doing daily. So if it's 5 minutes or if it's 20 minutes, awesome. But I would shoot for around 10.
Sean kind of hit you with a on the spot thing earlier before we started. It was like, hey, we'll show some moves, and then we kind of talked about how about doing a breathing practice, which we can maybe do in a few minutes. But for those of us who sit a lot, behind the desk, a lot of man, I drive a lot for meeting with clients and whatnot. Well, yeah, again, might be on the spot here, but is there what would be one or two of your go-tos that could help maybe get that same impact? It might only be a minute or two of that, but you do it maybe 5-6 times a day through the day to supplement until you can get a longer session. And what would be some of your go-tos to
Yeah. So maybe one of the best if you're sitting at a desk all day and you do have the ability to get up and move around, definitely try to stand up and move around at least once an hour at least. But something that I see a lot with people who are sitting often is posture, and even just like a slight, like for me, it's like I tend to lean towards my left side, right? Something like that we do for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or while we're in the car for an hour, those little things that throw our body off of balance can start to build up to more pain or discomfort over time. So posture is really important while we're sitting, to try to have your feet flat on the floor as much as possible, and to not round forward and start to get into that like the forward head position that sometimes we get when we're on our computer, but to try to keep the head stacked over the shoulders. And then even just like, I like doing like these, like kind of bring the arms into a goalpost shape and
I've got a
squeeze the
bunch of
shoulder
thoughts.
blades back and then press the arms together. Kind of like there's like a machine at the gym that does this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is great.
Doing a few of those and some shoulder circles. Anything that can loosen up the neck is really helpful. I feel like a lot of little crackles in
Yeah,
my
I
neck
got a lot
here
of
because
pop.
it's like 7 a.m. and I'm still warming up for the day too.
Every
Yeah, we don't
podcast
think to do
episode now, I'm
that
going to be
though.
doing this while the guest is talking.
But it's so simple what just happened right there, and I feel
I feel better already.
significantly better. And why do I not do that every 10 minutes, or I mean, it took me nothing to do that. And I know if I did, the benefits, like you said, if you sit for long enough in a certain position for long, it could be years that you've been doing this, you're going to suffer at some point because the body's not meant to lean. It's supposed to be stacked. And I saw, and you did that rounding shoulders and put your head forward. I saw a video, and it was like the different amount of pounds, the farther the head goes down. And at this right here, it's 60 pounds of weight on average that we're having to hold up. Think about that, 60 pounds, like it's going to have an impact. And so to be at optimal levels, to be in your great mental state of mind and physically, it's so important. The return of investment of doing these little tiny moves, consistency, like you're saying, can just have huge returns, and so it's just something we've got to do more of. And so I'm committing. Like, I just saw a vision for myself to do this. And if you do a car series of yoga moves on your YouTube channel, I am in.
I love that. I thought of there's two other ones I would love to just give people too that I think would be helpful. One of them, people don't really think about the strain on their eyes of being on their computer or on their phone a lot. And one of my favorites, I call it eye yoga, but just like close your eyes for a second. I'll guide you guys through it. Close your eyes for a second and try to look up as high as you can, keeping your eyes closed, but just looking up towards your forehead. And then try to look down as far as you can, kind of towards your nose or almost cross-eyed. And then relax your eyes back at center, keep them closed. And then look as far over to the right as you can. And then over to the left. And then draw some clockwise circles with your eyes. And then try to switch it and go counterclockwise with some circles with your eyes. And then relax back at center. Relax your forehead a little. Good. And then let your eyes open again. What did you guys feel during that?
Man, you know what I felt when I was looking left and right? I felt muscles on the back of my head move, which I would not have expected that, but I feel alert. I feel good. Like, how do you feel, Sean?
I felt so for me, I felt when I was hearing you. So I've done headspace and meditations, but I almost felt like you were my guide, and it was almost like that. It was all I was focused on. Had my eyes closed, and it was like a moment of peace. Nothing else mattered in the world. The world could be burning down, but I was here. I heard Kendall's voice, and it was such a peaceful moment for me. I don't know, my kind of stress and anxiety went down a little bit.
Cool. I love that. I love that you felt like the more like stress and anxiety reduction benefits.
Yeah.
And then Ewan felt like that, like you felt like the muscles in your eyes and stretching them and moving them and noticing how they're connected to other muscles in your head. Like we don't think about that. And when we're only staring at a screen that's like a foot away from us, the eyes are not getting their full range of motion.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That's when I noticed. I was like, I had no, I never, I'm 42 years old. I never felt that connection of the eye, because there is muscles, right, that is in there, and it's connected to be able to move. And there's fulcrums and different points of how the muscles work, right, in the contractions, and that has to have an impact if you're not doing that. Like you're saying, like that's got to show up somewhere else. And so you're doing more of that. Now I'm hyper aware of, because man, I love this stuff. I know Sean does too. Like, how can we
Yeah.
be 1% or 0.1% better at what it is that we do? How can we help ourselves here so that it helps there? And this is gold right here. I'm loving it.
cool. So glad you guys like that practice.
Yeah, love that.
Well, Kendall.
Well, we've got a few minutes left. You said breath work. Would you mind showing us maybe a minute or two of breath work that we could do as well?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, sure. You guys ready to go back in that meditation zone?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
All right. So, for those of you listening, if you're able to, take a second to close your eyes, maybe set down whatever you're working on, and we'll just take about 1 minute here. And this practice is called equal breathing. In Sanskrit, it's called samavriti, which just means equal length inhale paired with equal length exhale. Try to breathe through your nose and inhale deeply, and then exhale completely. Then inhale for 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 3, 2, 1. Exhale 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 3. Exhale for 3. Breathe in and continue to follow that count a couple times on your own. I'm going to relax your shoulders, relax the muscles of your face. Take one more round of breath. And then tuck your chin, opening your eyes. First, just looking at the ground or at your lap, and then bringing your eyes back up to the screen or looking around the room, kind of reorienting to your space for a second. And just notice how much can shift in just a minute. So this doesn't need to be, I think I'm seeing smiles on their faces. So
I know.
it doesn't need to be like something that you do for an hour and a half at a yoga studio 5 times a week. You can implement it in these little, really accessible ways and still feel the benefits of the practice, even if you feel like you have a busy schedule.
It's interesting there. I was like halfway through and I'm like, I'm totally relaxed. And then we kept
Yes.
going. I'm like, oh man, my shoulders went down more. And then I think, oh, now I'm relaxed. And then there's more. Like you just, I don't realize how tense I must be, or like all the things that, all the thoughts that make you tense. And so it's just the value of that. I mean, because like we said, that there's 1% up and there's 1% down. If you're doing
Yeah.
the things that don't help you out, like it's taking you to a place that's maybe making you resist you getting wherever you want to go, and so that's just one of those things right there. It's like, man, I feel that. So thanks for walking us through that. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Really appreciate that. One kind of final question before we wrap things up. Kendall, I'm curious too, like with you building a business and all the stress and anxiety that comes with it. And when I think of frustration and everything that comes aligned with it. But when you do yoga and these breath practices like that, right? It's like what Ewan said, the 1% better every day. You can go up or down. Their competitors out there are not doing these things, right? And this is what allows us to remain relaxed, calm, poised in these environments by doing these small little things on a daily basis. Have you seen that show up in your life? Like where, because you've been growing a business, life happens, right? Outside of, we didn't even get to, talk about what goes on outside of Kendall's life and what your day looks like. Just the time has flown by really quickly. But have you seen that by practicing yoga and building a business and taking care of clients and life and all the above, where that's seen a huge impact in your life, like with stress, anxiety, and all the, I mean, that's what's happened. That's what kind of what I've taken from it is like, this is just helping you to slow down, to really go fast, to focus in on what it is that you're trying to do better.
Yeah, yes, 100%. And, I've struggled with anxiety most of my adult life. And these practices have helped me have something to recenter myself. So if there is that day when it feels like, oh my gosh, why am I trying to build this business? This is so hard. It's been such a grind. Like, let yourself feel that for a moment, have that little moment, maybe shed a tear or two, and then recenter yourself, refocus on your goals, and like get after it again. It's like meet the emotion, acknowledge it, but don't let it take hold of you for the whole week or a whole day.
Yes.
Feel it and then start moving through it. That would be my guidance and what I try to do for myself too.
And that's beautiful. And you probably recognize it so quickly. Whereas before, I was the guy 5-6 years ago, I didn't have these kind of tools and resources. And I would just be spending a week in anger or frustration. Right. And so all it was a setback. And so, man, it's just, I really appreciate you today. I really acknowledge you for saying yes and being on the show with us today. So we're just grateful for you. And I know our listeners, our audience, they can hear all this all day long, but until they take action, they don't know what we're talking about until they do it, right? And so hopefully they follow along and go back and re-listen to this. 2 final questions for you. First question is, how can our listeners and support and audience at Level Up and Live support you, Kendall?
Yeah, give me a follow on Instagram. It's Kendall Ann Yoga. Ann is my middle name, Anne. So Kendall Ann Yoga, and that's gonna help you find me on any platform. I'm Kendall Ann Yoga on YouTube. There's a free meditation app called Insight Timer, and I have some guided relaxation practices and breathing practices that you can follow along with just audio on there. It's insighttimer.com/Kendall Ann Yoga. And then check out my website, kendalann.com, and you can schedule a one-on-one session with me if you're interested. and I'd love to work with some of you guys.
Awesome. And we'll put this in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Second and final question as we wrap things up, what does level up and live mean to you?
To me, level up and live means to empower yourself to take charge of your life. It's like, in order to level up, we have to let go of the things that we can't control, or the things that we could get in that cycle of like, oh, this is holding me back, or this is, those kind of like limiting beliefs of like, this is why I'm not succeeding. Let go of that stuff and empower yourself to start to take charge of the things that you do have control over, and then just live your life. Like, make those healthy choices, make those little, 1% or 0.5% changes, and just keep taking steps forward.
And I feel like you got me so relaxed. I feel like I'm just watching Miss Sean. I suddenly realized, oh no, I'm in this show. Thanks for doing that. And because that's just a testimony to what you're talking about. I just feel so relaxed. I feel great. And thank you so much for coming on today. We always end up the show just saying level up and live. And level up and live. Do yoga. Reach out to Kendall. You need this in your life.
Amen.
All right, thanks so much, you guys.
Level up and live.
Right, level up and live.
Level up and live.
Thank you for tuning in to another enlightening episode of the Level Up and Live podcast. A huge thank you to our guest, Kendall Wood, for spending the time, energy, and effort with us today. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on what you liked about the show. Connect with us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for exclusive behind-the-scenes content. And remember, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with a friend and let's spread the wisdom together. Until next time, keep leveling up and living your best life. Level up and live.